Okay, we are live. I'd like to welcome everybody to our Crossfire. We have a very special edition of Crossfire today. Today, the topic is Shlichus. And we have the pleasure of having four of the Rebbe Shluchim. And Emir Hashem, over the course of the program, we will have the chance to ask each one of the Shluchim questions that you, Talmidim, have submitted. Before we begin the actual program, I have the distinct pleasure and honor to introduce to each one of the shluchim. We will begin with Rabbi Moshe Feller. Rabbi Moshe Feller is the Rebbe Shliach to the state of Minnesota since Tavshin Chaf Beis, 1962. We have the pleasure and honor of having the Rebbe Shliach to Peachtree City, Georgia, Rabbi Yossi Lu, who has been on Shlichus since Tavshin Memches, 1988. We have the pleasure and honor of having Rabbi Mendel Kaplan, the Rebbe Shliach to Flamingo, Toronto, Canada, who has been on Shlichus since Tavshin Nun Hey, 1995. And we had the honor and pleasure of having Rabbi Landau, who is the Shliach of the Rebbe to Nevada, California, since Tavshin Ayin Beis. Thank you very much, each one of you shluchim. We understand that the time that you are giving us is precious. You're taking it from the time that you are devoting to your community and your shlichus, and we really, really appreciate each and every one of you joining us today. Before we begin the program, I would like to give each shliach a moment to introduce himself, tell us a little bit about his shlichus. We will begin with Rabbi Feller. If you could please, in 2 minutes, 3 minutes, let us know who you are, your shlichus, where you are, and a little bit about your shlichus. B'chavid Gadol, Rabbi Feller.
Thank you. I'm honored to be included in this panel. I'm Baruch Hashem, Admei Vesim Shana, and it's getting closer to that I'm on Shlichus. I am 58 years in Shlichus in Minnesota, and Minnesota wasn't my idea to be on Shlichus. The Rebbe sent me there, and this was a Shlichus that was created totally by the Rebbe. I wasn't asked. And Minnesota was where I was born and raised. And I don't know if that applies to anybody else on this panel. I was sent in the year that I got married to my Rebbetzin, who was very much part of the Shlichus and its success. And she's the aunt of one of the panelists here. My wife Mindelbas Yente and Lou. Again, I was imposed on the Twin City Jewish community. They didn't ask for me, but Baruch Hashem, in the course of the years, they got to be pleased and very much pleased, and we broke through. We got a lot of the famous people in Minnesota, like Senator Boschwitz, Bob Dylan, to get involved and identify with what happened.
Thank you very, very much. We'll move on to Rabbi Lou. Please, if you could share with us a little bit about your shlichus and how it came about.
Well, first of all, hello and shalom aleichem to my uncle, Rabbi Moshe Feller. Without the Zoom, I don't think I would be able to see you. So we have an opportunity to say hello, semi-live. My shlichus is in Peachtree City. The state of Georgia has been my Makom HaShlichus since 1993, since Tavshin Nun Gimel. We moved there from the New York area, and I've been involved in several things. A few years ago, my wife and I decided that we have been working with the other shliach. We were working at the headquarters, and together with the headquarters, we came to the agreement that I would go to open up a new place, a really difficult, uncharted territory, a place that has no infrastructure of Judaism on any level. And today, there is, Baruch Hashem, enough to do over here. And in addition, I have my hands involved in different projects around the world. I go a lot to Fabring and to talk and to speak, which is for me a very, very special part of Shlichus, to hopefully encourage and inspire others as I try to encourage and inspire myself.
Thank you very, very much. We'll move all the way from the United States of America to the country of Canada and the province of Toronto, Ontario. We have the pleasure and honor of having Rabbi Kaplan, who's the Shliach of Flamingo, Toronto, Canada. And Rabbi Kaplan, if you could please share with us a little bit about your Shlichus.
Thank you, first of all, for the honor and the privilege to be here, to participate. My wife and I, when we first got married, we were on Shlichus in Michigan. I was in Chinuch, I was in yeshiva at that time, and then we spent some time later on in Yerushalayim teaching Mayanot, and we actually arrived in Toronto in Tafshin Nun Ches in 1998. It's a very unique kind of situation here. There isn't really a place called Flamingo. Flamingo is a street, literally. It's literally a small, sleepy street. And we're on the corner of Bathurst and Flamingo. Bathurst is like Kingston Avenue is to Crown Heights. Bathurst is to Jewish Toronto. It's a street that begins all the way down at Lake Ontario, and it goes all the way up north. And there's Jewish infrastructure today along Bathurst Street, probably for 9 straight kilometers, all the way up into nearly a place called Aurora, certainly north of Richmond Hill. So I mean, people think it's called Chabad of Flamingo, where we're in this neighborhood called Flamingo, but actually the town that we live in, the town is called Thornhill, and it's in a city which is called Vaughan, which is north of Toronto, just north of Toronto. In fact, when we write in a ksuba, we write Thornhill Hasmucha, or Masa Vaughan Hasmucha to Toronto. And the shlichus that we received is very, very much like a neighborhood-based shlichus. Canada is a very, very unique country in that the multiculturalism of Canada is not in the method of melding and mixing pot, like in America, where people kind of come together and form a homogeneous or a common group of people. But instead, in Canada, there are like pockets. I like to call it the tiles of the mosaic. So they're like tiles, and they, just like tiles have grout in between them. There are many ethnic communities. I know in the United States, growing up, most of the big cities have a place called Chinatown, and people from China live together, or they used to. But here, it's very much there's a little Italy, there's a little Greece, and there's very many ethnic pockets. There are areas of the city that's like almost entirely Chinese area of the city, which is Japanese, and this is how Canadians function. The country of Canada it's an enormous country. It's larger in landmass than the United States, but you have 300 million people. We only have 30 million people. So in order to maintain infrastructure, it's only possible through something called urbanization, and that's why you have like pockets of urbanization. And there's probably more polar bears living in this country than there are people. And up north, there's almost no infrastructure. What's happened over the last 30 and 40 years is that little towns have literally become ghost towns, have dried up, sometimes entirely, but especially when it comes to Jewish life. So there's very, very little Jewish life in small Shtetlach, where there was a shul maybe 100 years ago, or even 70 or 80 years ago. And people are living packed together, urbanized, like even the suburbs here are like cities. And I live in a neighborhood where 95% of the residents are Jewish. And I'm not exaggerating. There's like one guy on my block. But everybody's very secular in my neighborhood, very secular. And, some people have even animosity towards Yiddishkeit. Some people are just, traditional. They don't mind Yiddishkeit. Most of the doors will have at least one mezuzah. I don't know if it's a kosher mezuzah, but a mezuzah. And we moved into a neighborhood that wasn't yet built. It was just like the neighborhood had ended. And my father-in-law, by Grossman, was the head shliach of Ontario, had received this property from a gvir in a promise that he made before Shnas HaBinyan. And my shver actually came over here and he turned the shovel over and he wrote to the Rebbe that he started preparing this property to build an eventual Beis Chabad. The interesting thing is that right after that, all the development in the city stopped. It was a real estate crash and all the development in the city stopped. And it began after we got married. My wife and I got married. That's when they started developing this area again. Anyway, so Bashkach Pratas, after being in the various places, we both knew this is the kind of shlichus we were looking for. This is what we wanted to do. And so what we have is very much of a neighborhood-based shlichus. We have, Baruch Hashem, a very, very large and flourishing shul and a strong community. I would say that, there's about 300 or 350 families that are tightly connected. On average Shabbos, before this whole craziness, we used to be able to get, between 200 to sometimes 300 people even on a regular Shabbos. And about 17 or 18 years ago, from a whole series of Ashgach Pratis, and I ended up on television. And then from television, I ended up on radio. I've been doing a daily radio thing for about 15 or 16 years now. And then somebody asked me to start recording classes. So a lot of my classes ended up at Chabad.org. And then eventually Facebook came along and I started doing Facebook Live. So my shlichus is very much community oriented, but at the same time, there's a very, very large reach because of mass media and social. And I also had the privilege of having like a relationship with different politicians. I went with the Prime Minister of Canada to Eretz Yisrael on his plane a number of years ago, and the mayor of our city, who's became a very, very good friend. He's not Jewish. He's an Italian, but he used to watch the Rebbe on the Farbrengens, and I took him to the Oil last year at Alf Nissen, and he still talks about it wherever he goes. Anyway, that's a little about my shlichus.
Yes, Shekoyach, very, very geschmack. And let's go back to the state, the country of the United States of America, all the way to the West Coast. We have the pleasure of having Rabbi Menachem Landa has been on shlichus to Novato, California since Tufshin Ayin Beis. Rabbi Landa, please tell us a little bit about your shlichus and where you're holding now.
So my shlichus is probably polar opposite of Rabbi Kaplan's. I'll just give you an example. There's no Yidden that are on my block. And when we first moved here, I saw a mezuzah on someone's door. We got all excited. I knocked on the door. I'll meet for my first Yid. And they're like, no, we're not Jewish. Someone left this mezuzah, this piece here for years. And it's a nice decoration. So we kept it on our doorpost. So we have, I'm the only rabbi in town. Forget about Shliach. I'm the only Jewish connection to many, many of the Yidden that we've been meeting. We came here without knowing a single Yid. And how we chose our Shlichus, we actually rented a car, came from the airport, rented a car with our little baby. And there's a sign in our city that says downtown Novato, the next exit. So we went up and down that exit looking for downtown. And we rolled down our window and we asked someone, where is downtown? They said, this is downtown. There's no building here that's bigger than 2 floors. And coming from Crown Heights and from Brooklyn, it was definitely very different. But it has an incredible maila that where people's only connection to Yiddishkeit. People didn't even know that they needed Yiddishkeit. People were fine the way they were. They felt they were fine. And where people's source of Maim Chaim. After a few months after we moved to town, the Trader Joe's, which is the local store here, they had a sign on their kosher. They had one kosher wine there, and they had a sign there that says the local rabbi's pick. And I was trying to figure out, there's no other rabbi living in this town other than me. So I asked them, why is there a sign there? And they said, Rabbi, since you moved to town, this wine skyrocketed in sales because everyone who comes to my house brings a kosher wine, and no one knew what kosher wine was. So they put a sign there. So like our shlichus, like we're the only identity for people's Yiddishkeit, and both for Goyim and of course for Yidden, it's an incredible oasis. And for 8 years, we came here literally not knowing a single Yid, and our first Pa'ula was Shavuos right around this time. We had 90 people come to our door. It was in the newspaper, first rabbi ever to move to Novato. And our first menorah lighting for Hanukkah, which is a big Pa'ula for us, we had over 300 people. And really, we became a big part. The mayor is Jewish. They change mayors every year, but the mayor's sons come to our Hebrew school. We just had our big celebration yesterday. And the mayor always jokes whenever we meet for coffee that more people know me and they say hi to me than who know the mayor because of the people that Baruch Hashem have been coming and connecting through our shlichus.
Mr. Koyach, thank you very much. And thank you to each one of the shluchim. We're going to move on to the questions that Talmidim submitted. I will ask each one of the panelists if they can try to keep their questions to a minute or two. That way we could try to cover more of the Talmidim's questions. We're going to start with Rabbi Feller. Rabbi Feller, were you zeichet to receive any directives from the Rebbe regarding your shlichus?
Well, I had in Topshin Chavez, my wife Allah Hashem and myself, we had a yechidus with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told me, I wasn't going to Minnesota as a synagogue rabbi or as a director of a school, principal of a school. It's a grassroots thing. And so the Rebbe told me, I can't give you any specific instructions, but the Rebbe told me about Sforim, asked me about Sforim. The Rebbe spent most time speaking to my wife. She was an accomplished mathematician, and the Rebbe gave her a hoyra that since she is a mathematician, get involved in the mathematics department of the University of Minnesota. And that had tremendous results because she went to work for Professor Paul Rosenblum, one of the professors. And she went to work for him, and I went to work on him. And he became very close to the Rebbe, and it resulted in the Rebbe commissioning him to publish the paper written by Rebbe. But to me, the Rebbe gave an interesting instruction after he said, I mean, you're going as a grassroots guy, but you shall sign flexible. And the Rebbe used the English word. Now, obviously, that didn't mean in halacha. There's this flexibility in halacha. There's kulas and chumras, but I didn't take it as that at all. Just not to be rigid in your dealings with people, and if something doesn't work on the in the shlichus, change to something else. Be open to everything. I think that's one of the reasons that St. Paul, Minnesota became one of the bastions of Jewish education for Balas Chuvas. Women came to Minnesota for Beis Chana, which was founded by my wife, Allah Shalom, and myself, and Rabbi Manas Friedman. And that Baruch Hashem became one of the super moistest, and produced thousands and thousands of Balas Chuvas. So again, a specific Torah, I think is you should be Yuzol Zayin flexible.
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Feller. Rabbi Lou, what was the hardest or most challenging part of your shlichus? Or what was the biggest challenge you ever faced?
Shlichus, I don't look at shlichus as hard. It's a challenge every day. I think the biggest challenge every day is to say to yourself, what does the Rebbe want of you? And go and find what it is and do it. It's sometimes difficult to find, and sometimes it's even more difficult to do. I mean, we have the ups and downs like everybody has. There's difficulties. There are people who die. Somebody died on this past Friday. Those are very difficult challenges to deal with. There are people who don't like you, and there are people who try to stop you. But this everybody has. It's not exclusive. But on a personal level, you have to deal with challenges in life and in shlichus. That's the point. The question is, am I doing what the Rebbe wants me to do? Midei yoyim b'yoymai. And what is it? And am I going to do it? For me, that's the most difficult part of everything else can be worked out. That's the most difficult part of it.
Thank you, Rabbi Lou. Rabbi Kaplan, one of the Talmidim asked, do you have non-Lubavitchers in your area? If yes, what do they think of Chabad? Where I live, they think that Lubavitchers are not as frum as they are.
It's not a very frum community where I live, but I have a lot to do with the frum community. I sit on the executive board of the COR, and I'm a member of the Vaad Rabbanim. What do people think of Lubavitchers? I think that Lubavitch is pretty much respected in the city. I think that people know that that the shluchim here are learned, Baruch Hashem, and there's a lot of good things happening. I mean, I cannot tell you that there's no hisnagdus. I cannot tell you that there's no acrimony to Lubavitch, because it's a fact of life. But as cities go, I would say that this is a city on the lower end, where there's not a lot of like overt hostility to Lubavitch. I brought a group from the Aguda. I for years now I've been praying for them once a year, and I brought them to the oil for Shabbos. I already did it. We're supposed to be last Shabbos in New York. Actually, the circumstances are that didn't work out, obviously. But for 2 years in a row, I brought a group and we knew about it, and they came back very inspired. Our challenges. The challenges are not from the typical Hisnagdus. The challenges are more like the other outreach organizations, which are very jealous of us. Years ago, especially, they gave us a hard time. And our challenges are, I find, more from people who have unfortunately, an acrimony and a hostility towards Yiddishkeit in general. That I find is a bigger challenge.
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Kaplan. Rabbi Landa, what is the strongest thing? What is the strongest thing that connects your community together?
It's a good question. The beginning of our Shlichus, we thought doing big pa'ulas, and we still do them. We thought that's the biggest important for to have big numbers and to have as many people and create the biggest ra was the most important. But over time, we realized that nothing could replace a connection one-on-one and getting to know people personally. So our biggest, our strongest point of our Shlichus is actually getting to know people one-on-one, literally becoming friends with people where they know they could count on us in their hard times. We celebrate with them in their happy times. For example, Shabbos dinner is our most important pa'ula. We're able to have an effect on people when they see the family unit, they see what a Shabbos table looks like, many of them for their first time. It has an incredible effect on people's Yiddishkeit, on people's perception, and on people's want to be involved and connect on a deeper level, the one-on-one connections.
Thank you. A lot of these questions and a lot of the answers, the Talmidim are asking, and I'm sure the answers not only reflect the Shlichus, but certainly this is something that they could apply to their own personal lives, even at their age. And this is the following question, which I'll ask to Rabbi Feller, is another example of that. Rabbi Feller, what do you take away from any event you make? Whether it be a learning session, whether it be a menorah lighting or a Purim event, what do you take away whenever you have made an event?
Well, I come to be Makarev, and I'm Nishkarev. I take the Shlichus of the people who are involved and their enthusiasm, and that inspires me. And it's just many of the places where I look. I had a upbringing in a yeshiva. I learned more years in a non-Lubavitch yeshiva than I learned in Lubavitch. And I brought Lubavitch to the Twin Cities, and we have, Baruch Hashem, a group of about 40 shluchim. We have a cheder, and we have a Beis Chana, and we have a smicha online. What do I take away from? Again, I had a very good background. These kids or these people who are at next to no background or no background, yet they're tamimus, and sincerity in Yiddishkeit inspires me.
Thank you very, very much. Rabbi Lou, Was there ever a moment or story or encounter where it really hit you like, wow, this Shlichus is real? Obviously, when you're going on a Shlichus, it's real, but sometimes there is that wow moment that takes you, that really brings it all home in a deeper manner than beforehand. Did this ever happen? If yes, if you could please share it.
It absolutely did happen, and it should happen to every single shliach. Shortly after we moved to Peachtree City, and remember, we moved after being 19 years already in Atlanta and some 20 years in Shlichus in general. And we were having everything in our house. Our garage, where I'm sitting right now, was the shul, and we couldn't fit everybody in Ainahara. We needed another place. We needed a place for an office. We needed a place. And I'm going to make a long story with a lot of major pratim and beautiful pratim short. But there was a house within walking distance from my house, and it was for sale for mamish, like for a joke. It was foreclosed, and we applied to buy the house, and they said there's another company involved already. It was on Chaf of 5 years ago, and one of my friends was in Al Matan. He sent a WhatsApp message to the group saying that he's there, and I asked for a bracha, and I met with the balabas within an hour after him saying this bracha on the oil of the Rebbe's father. And the balabas says to me, "How much do they want for the house?" I said, "Kach v'kach." He says, "Okay, we'll take it." He's going to pay the entire amount. The biggest donation, obviously, I've ever received. And even then, the bank said no. And I was at the oil. I went to New York for that chafaf, and I was at the oil on Sunday. And the bank said no. And I said, there's no such thing as no. And I made the real estate developer put in a higher offer. Anyway, the bottom line is we got that house within a week. And that's our Chabad house to this day. And it was only 2.5 years after we moved. And I said to myself, do I really need a house like this? Do I need a Chabad house? And as soon as it happened on Friday. That Friday, when I sent out my regular email to my community, I said to them, until this point, we were shluchim here. From now on, we are going to be the shluchim here till Mashiach comes. We know that this is for sure, without a doubt. It was a miracle, like on every level. And then at that point, I knew that the Rebbe wants us here, the Eibusher wants us here, and we're going to be here till Mashiach comes.
Rabbi Cohen, is there rules? Could I add to that also?
Certainly, Rabbi Latta.
It's more of a mili de bdichusa on it, but another defining moment that I had on my shlichus was more recently, maybe 6 months ago. One of the ladies, one of the community people that we're very close with, her name is Eileen, and shortly before moving here, her husband died, and she was tzibrach, and she doesn't have any children. She was very broken about it, and in the past year, she finally started dating again, and she's together with a lovely Jewish man. And she wanted to bring him for Shabbos to my house. And we set a date, and they were coming for Shabbos. And a few days before, she called me and she said, Rabbi, I want you to know that bringing Jim to your house for Shabbos is like me getting the blessing of my father. And she's in her 70s. Her father is an Elam Emes for many years. And she says, this is like me bringing my future husband to get the approval of my parents. I'm doing it through you. And I'm less than halfway, and she's considering that to be her blessing. And I realize it's beyond the powers of me as the rabbi. It's more as the power of a mishaleach that's able to add that in. We have another mention in our community. His name is Sam, and we were sitting bringing, and his biggest care, his biggest worry was why was I never zeicha to see the Rebbe? He never knew the word Rebbe before our shlichus, but like his whole thing now is, why can't I meet the Rebbe one-on-one? And of course the oyel and everything, but like, of course I answered that, but like for him to have such a want to have received $1 from the Rebbe, I found that incredible that the Mishaleach, that we're able to have a real shlichus here and give nachas our boss.
Thank you very, very much, Rabbi Landa. Rabbi Kaplan, how do you keep your Chabad house running properly in a pandemic like this? How has COVID-19 affected your Shlichus? Has it improved it? And if yes, how?
I don't think it's reasonable to say that this current situation improved anything. It's something we have to cope with. First of all, I had coronavirus myself. My son got married right after Purim. It was in Europe, and we came back, and I got sick. So I was really like very much at a disadvantage. Like I was away, I had the stress of a chasna, and then I was like sick for a few weeks. I have another younger man who works with me, so he picked up slack, and I was like literally from my bed writing things and trying as much as I could to engage with people. And by Yud Aleph Nissen, I was already like walking. I was on my feet again. I went and dropped off matzah by some people, obviously with masks and gloves and all that stuff. But as soon as I was able, I started to use the technology that I had started to use actually years earlier, like Facebook Live, and eventually, moved into Zoom. Something we did a few weeks ago is we sent challah to 250 families. And people were very touched to open their door, find a challah with a little note over there, thinking of you. I try to call people. Every time you call people, it's a very time-consuming thing, which is why I wasn't actually going to say yes to you, because every hour I give somewhere else, that's 2 people less that I spoke to, and I have like 500 people that I need to speak to, and I'm very much behind in that. So I give shiurim now as I did before on Facebook Live, but now I do it on Zoom as well. And I think that people are much more vulnerable, and as such, they may be a little bit more receptive. But it's also very difficult not to deal with people on a face-to-face level. Something Rabbi Feller said before resonates when he said that Ebbet said, "Don't get rigid and don't get stuck in one place." A young shliach asked me recently, "What's the most important thing I learned on Shlichus?" And I said, "You have to treat it like a business." And he said, "What do you mean? You make money?" I said, "No. It means you have to reinvent yourself. There's no such thing as you figured it out. Now you know exactly what has to be done, and just keep doing this, and everything's gonna be great." It doesn't work like that. People change. The reality of the environment changes, society changes, everything around us is changing. It doesn't change as Torah. But our job is to package Torah in a way that's appealing and that's meaningful for people. And that's not a simple thing. It's not a simple. So you have to doubt yourself, and you have to recheck and work hard again and try one thing and try the other thing. And this situation is no different. We have to constantly try the best that we could to make a difference in enriching people's lives and uplifting them, and in helping them become closer to the Eibishter, and to make them Chassidim of the Rebbe during a time when we're very much limited. So Matzah Shabbos, I do Havdalah, I have a Fabrengen every Matzah Shabbos now, and every night of the week I give a share. On right before Shabbos we do Kabbalah Shabbos till after L'Chadedi, and I cannot see how anybody's going to tell me that the Shlichus is better now. I can't see how it's possible. I think if you're selling PPE or if you're selling hand sanitizer, maybe business is better. But as a rule, this is a difficult, very, very difficult set of circumstances that the Eibishter put us in, especially because Shlichus is personality work. We don't run organizations. We deal with people. We connect with people, and not to be able to connect to somebody with physical closeness, I think, is a deficiency, and it makes life challenging.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Kaplan. If I could ask, I know it's possible one of the panelists may have a phone on their table, which is buzzing. If you do have the phone, if you're able to move it to the side, that way it wouldn't affect the audio. Rabbi Feller, question. I'm going to assume you went through this situation when you first went out on Shlichus. What do shluchim who are in places without kosher milk and meat do?
Well, when we first came there, we went out to get Cholov Yisrael. We went out to a farm, and we supervised the milking of the cows ourselves. And you do. This is back in 62 through 65, and later. Again, we went push to the farm to watch the milking, and we would boil it, and we brought in our stuff from New York. We were every time we went to New York, we came back with packages of meat, fish, cheese. We couldn't, but now Baruch Hashem, we have all of that. We have two cities that Baruch Hashem have a lot of Yiddishkeit, kashrus. In St. Paul, we are Orthodoxy. Our shul, Rabbi Simon go to the Twin Cities, and he's the Rav of the shul already over 50 years. So that wasn't a big problem. I just want to add to what Rabbi Kaplan said, that he got that the Rebbe told me, he used the word rigid. The Rebbe explicitly said to me, so sign flexibility, which is the idea that Rabbi Kaplan mentioned now. But it's just that the Rebbe was speaking Yiddish, and he chose this English word, so sign flexible.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Feller. Rabbi Lou, how does a shliach balance his shlichus with family life? And does one take a priority over the other? Additionally, what are the chinuch challenges of a shliach?
Balancing life means that you are home with your children and you need to be putting them to bed and you need to be speaking at the table. A Maisa from Rebbe, the Piskum from Hayom Yom, something like that. If you're not home in the evening, sometimes it's very challenging. That is a challenge because of maybe a minyanim or shiurim or something like that. Then you need to make sure that on Shabbos you will tell at least one story of the Rebbe at the table. And it's very easy today to buy these books that put these stories in a very simple way or in the Parshas HaShavua way. And it should not be difficult to bring the Rebbe in all the time as you sit with your kids, because that's the Shlichus. And then other things like watching the videos together of the Rebbe and so on. There's the priority, their children are the Shlichus. And the most effective thing of Shlichus is your children. When we moved, one of the things we were missing was little younger children. And Baruch Hashem, we have Einiklach that are not too far away, and they come pretty often because they are the foundation of everything. And the people who are the Balabatim, they grow with your children, and your children grow with them, and they learn a lot from them. I remember one of my kids who was, I think, 3 or 4 at the time, and I was teaching somebody Pashat Aleph base, a person who was in 40s or 50s already. And my kid said, "Hey, that's easy. That's tzaddik with a patach. That's tzah." And that was an incredible motivational moment for this person to become Shomer Torah mitzvahs just as a result of that. And your children are the shlichus. So and the priority, as family life is concerned, there needs to be a tremendous focus on the children. They cannot be left up to other people and to other devices and to other things.
Thank you, Rabbi Lou. Rabbi Landa, shluchim are out there in the world interacting with worldly people and worldly matters. How does a shliach not allow himself to get caught up in the goyishkeit of the world and remain a Torah true and chassidische yid and chassid?
That's what the Rebbe was able to implant in us, the power of being involved, but be a tefach hecher, tefeach hamenas latviach, that we're so busy giving and sharing that we're influencing them to the point that they are influencing others. We don't get affected by it. It's an incredible chiddush, where at the time when the Rebbe started Shlichus and so many other groups were saying that it's spiritual suicide, the Rebbe knew exactly what he's doing. And we have an anchor. We have the Rebbe's Torah, we have the Rebbe's videos. And in general, it's just limud Torah that keeps us grounded on who we are, keeps us stable, keeps us balanced, and that we could be in world and going to places and inspiring others, and yet we remain connected to the source more than ever. It's an incredible chiddush of shlichus that we could be so dedicated and not be affected at the same time. It's a beautiful thing, and it starts with number one, strong in your Torah. Every morning I have a few chavrusas, not with people in the community, and not a way to advance people's Yiddishkeit here, but aliba denafshe, my own learning. I learn Kafrei Shayin Test every morning at 6 a.m. and I have another chavrusa in Gemara every morning with shluchim around the world. And so throughout the day, I have different chavrusas every day of the week, a different time, a different learning. But then also farbrengens, staying connected with chavedim that are on Shlichus around the world, and we inspire each other. It's and it allows us to be a better shliach every day.
Thank you very, very much. Rabbi Feller, what is the difference between Shlichus and Kiruv?
I will tell you. I was thinking about that. The Shlichus, when I go to a school and I want to, I ask them, give me what is a mitzvah, and by the answer I can know what kind of school it is. If they'll tell me that mitzvah is a good deed, something's missing over there in that school. If they'll tell me that mitzvah is a commandment, so I know that commandment says there's a relationship between a commander and a commandee. One who is commanded. The difference between Shlichus and Kiruv is that Shlichus implies Mishalech, the Mishaleach, and that the Shliach is bound to the Mishaleach, and that's the success of the Shliach. Whereas Kiruv, there is no Mishaleach, so it's like the deed, like one says, it's a good deed, but there's no force. They can they'll be usually a shliach is in his place Advias Goel Tzedek, but here in the Kiruv they change quickly. I must tell you, the word Kiruv professional nauseates me. The Kiruv professional, we never used I heard the word Kiruv Chaykim. Who's to say who's the Karuv and who's the Rachik? So we never heard that word from the Rebbe, but we did hear Abbas Yisrael, a professional Kiruv professional. What does it mean? Abbas Yisrael professional? I don't know what that means, but I say that when I hear it, I must tell you, it nauseates me. And again, so the difference between Shlichus implies Mishalach.
Thank you.
It's a bunch of ideas. I'm not knocking the other groups. The Rebbe didn't want a monopoly in reaching out to Ian, but the Kiruv is you can't feel that there's no force that tells them what to do and where to go and how to do it and inspires them. A lot of them get inspiration from the Rebbe, but again, the main difference is that Shlichus implies Mishaleach, just like Mitzvah implies Mitzabeh.
Thank you, Derek.
Is a commander, and a good deed that depends on the person's assessment of what is a good deed.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Feller. Rabbi Lou, I heard there is no official shliach in Poland, and that is for a specific reason. Is that true? And if yes, why?
It's interesting you ask me that question. I've been to Poland many times on behalf of shluchim who are officially in Poland, and there is a very big misunderstanding of that whole sugya. Here's the real story. After I did all kinds of investigation based on Shlichus of the Rebbe as well. In Tafshin Mem Tes, when the walls of communism fell down, David Chase, somebody who was, the Rebbe was very Makarov, together with Lauder, who is the head of Revlon makeup or perfume, something like that, something to do with women. And those two are very wealthy people. And Chase, who was originally from Poland, went to Poland to see about business over there. And he met with Lech Walesa, who became the prime minister of Poland, president of Poland, the person who ran Poland. And he told him about the Rebbe. Lech Walesa said he would like to bring back 10,000 Jews to the country of Poland, 2,000 in each of the big cities like Warsaw, Krakow, Lublin, because he realizes that without the Jews, Poland is not a good country, not a successful country. And so David Chase wrote that into the Rebbe, and together with Chatzkel Besser, and that's where we know the story from. Chatzkel Besser, though, before he ever came to the Rebbe, he always wrote what is his agenda, what's his motive. So he wrote this all into the Rebbe. So by dollars, when those three came by, Besser, Lauder, and Chase, the Rebbe said to them, I don't see a future in Poland. That future in Poland didn't mean that there shouldn't be shluchim there. It meant that he doesn't agree with sending 10,000 Jews, picking 10,000 Jews and resettling them in Poland. He said, in other words, what the Rebbe was saying was Poland has had its time. And the Rebbe said that a second time to them when they came by again with more details and with more incentives, I guess. And the Rebbe again said, I don't see for a future in Poland. And then on Shabbos Bahaloischa Tavshin Nun Aleph, Muga, the Rebbe spoke about Poland, Poilin, the Rebbe said. And in that Sikha, the Rebbe spoke about Hafatzas Hamayonis over there. There was never a ban on going to Poland. It doesn't make any sense. And the Rebbe, in fact, said befedish to them by dollars that he said there are a bunch of old people over there, Holocaust survivors. The Rebbe said you have to work with them. There's no such thing as there was a ban on going to Poland at all. And it's not just like not partial. It's completely false. I don't know where that comes from, B'chlal. I heard people say, yeah, after Gimel Tammuz, that's when they opened up Poland. That has nothing to do with Gimel Tammuz. There are shluchim in Poland. There are, I believe, 4 shluchim. There's 1 or 2 in Krakow, and there's 1 in Warsaw. And then there are always Bochrim over there. They have a yeshiva or shtickle yeshiva, some Israeli guys who hang around, and they go from place to place. Anyway, Poland is on the map, and they're doing a lot of tremendously good work. The Shliach in Warsaw has a minyan 3 times a day, as does the one in Krakow. And there's a lot of people, local Polish Jews. I verbring with them last year, and I was supposed to go Yud Shvat this year. I mean, Poland is official, and it's part of the Shlichus.
Thank you very, very much. That's something I didn't know. Rabbi Kaplan, there are times that I feel intimidated when I'm with others that don't share the same standards or Chassidish lifestyle as I. I can only imagine what shluchim have to face, especially if they are trying to meet someone rich or famous. What has been your experience, and how did you overcome those fears and challenges, and how could I apply them to my personal life?
You know, I was once at a bat mitzvah, and I was sitting at a table I was just starting my shlichus here. Then I'm young, but I was very, very young then. And the person at the table was very hostile to Yiddishkeit. And they were like throwing all these questions at me, and there's no God, and so on and so forth. And I was answering them. I remember one of the things I told him was a story with Rebbe Rashab, when he was talking to the person who said about the angels, there's no malachim, and he talked about the horse and the kutcher, the person driving the coach, and he said like each one looks at it in his way, and the Rebbe Rashab said, see the fathers the fair zetnish kim malachim, just because the horse only sees a bag of oats, that's the reason he's running. Does that mean there's no malachim? I told over the story. It was a whole table of people. And one of the people at the table was a cousin of the Bas Mitzvah family. They were from Borough Park. Not Hasidish, but, like very, without a beard, but like clearly very from. So his wife tells my wife after, we don't know how you guys live like this. He He said, we would either go crazy or go fry if we had to be surrounded by people like this a whole day. I don't even, it's just second nature. I don't think about it even. Like everybody has challenges in every area of life. That's life. Life is filled with challenges. I don't know. I love being amongst Yidden who are learning or want to learn, or you have an opportunity to teach them. I'm not really understanding the question. Maybe I'm just doing this for too long, so it doesn't. I mean, you have to remember that a Lubavitcher Bacher, at the age as a kid, most of us before bar mitzvah, were already on mitzvah tanks. We're already out there, and we're going on mitzvahim since we're bar mitzvah. By the time you're in your 20s, you should be very used to going over to people and saying, "Excuse me, are you Jewish?" By the way, I don't even do that. If you look remotely Jewish, what I'll do is I go over and say Shalom Aleichem, because I found people get angry with the question. Shalom Aleichem. If they're going looking like I'm crazy, I smile. So they smile and they move on. 9 times out of 10, it works better, I find. But at any rate, you figure out your own way of what works, of how to get through to a Yid. And whether it's the first question you ask him or the second question you ask him, we're doing this. We grow up doing this. Like we have more experience dealing with possible hostility and people who are different than us and people who don't know about Yiddishkeit. By the time you go on Shlichus, you should be like a decade or 12 years into this. So is it comfortable? It's comfortable being in a hostile environment. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes being in a hostile environment. But I think each and every one of us has a certain comfort zone just by virtue of growing up as a Lubavitcher Bacher in being able to do this. And the Rebbe gave us a certain Ge'on Yankiv, a certain pride in who we are and what we represent, that I think buoys us and gives us a tremendous ability to overcome those kind of challenges. I'm not sure if I answered your question, by the way, but
that's up for the child. But
that's what came to mind when I heard the question.
Okay. Rabbi Landa, I have a feeling for Shlichus and I want to help and make a difference. However, I don't see myself or feel comfortable fundraising. What could you tell me?
I could tell you join the club. I don't know fundraising either. We all want to make a difference. It's like Rabbi Kaplan was saying, that's how we're just in our baby bottles. That's our job. The whole reason why we're put into this world is to make a difference. And not always is it comfortable. We learned that also from a young age in Chassidus, Tanya, that we do things even if they're not comfortable. And I guess also just in place would be a nice mind shift. That it's not about you, it's about getting the job done. And fundraising is not about you covering the bank. Fundraising is also being mezaka another yid with staka and allowing them to be a partner on Shlichus and being partner of the Rebbe's Meisid. And if we look at it from that perspective, it should be throwing a huge excitement, have an opportunity to have a shutef in the Rebbe's work with this yid, allowing. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's not always comfortable. I still don't know how to fundraise, but we make it happen because there's a shlichus that has to get done, and by the Rebbe there's no failure. The Rebbe is expecting us to succeed, and already to go back to your original thing, and Rabbi Lou mentioned this, and Rabbi Feller as well, that you're asking Rabbi Feller about his shlichus stories and guidance from the Rebbe on it, and I feel it's so important also. I'm trying to do this more and more with my kinderlach, 10 and younger, is to have them look at the Rebbe not just as stories that happened from 25 years ago and prior, but stories that are happening every day, stories that are happening in my life and your life, stories that are so relevant. You see the Rebbe's guidance and you see the Rebbe's answers. I need to inspire myself more in it, and I always found by being mechanech our children that our Rebbe is a Rebbe that's now, perhaps even more than the Rebbe was. Like the Rebbe is our Rebbe. It's not just stories that how we link to the Rebbe based on Chassidim that had stories and guidance, but the Rebbe is our Rebbe. I think it's a very powerful way to get through any uncomfortability in doing it, realizing that we have a Rebbe that's guiding us through it, and just explaining that to our kinderlach also to be a dug mechaya, and to show them that the Rebbe is their Rebbe as much as it was our Rebbe that had those dollars and for bringing. The Rebbe is for bringing with us now and with them, my kinderlach, and everyone who didn't meet the Rebbe personally. Before the Daled, we have the same Rebbe and it's stronger now more than ever.
Thank you very much. Before we end, If I could
Can I just add something to what Rabbi Landau said?
yes, one moment. Here we go. Yes.
I just wanted to add that to the questioner. Whatever you're going to end up doing in life, there's always going to be things that you don't like. Nobody has a perfect job. Nobody has every single part of his job or every single part of whatever you do that you enjoy. So as long as you like what you're doing generally, I think you're in good shape. And the amazing thing about being on Shlichus is that whatever difficulty you're having, you're always connected to the Rebbe. And there's nothing more rewarding than that. Whoever's giving you a hard time, remember, they're giving you a hard time. You're not there by yourself. You're there as a shliach. So you're doing this for the Rebbe and with the Rebbe. And there could be elements of your shlichus which are difficult. And I don't know anybody who actually likes fundraising or I don't personally know anybody who's amazing at it. There are some people who are amazing at it. I don't know who they are, at least not personally. But whatever, you get through it. In every single job, there are challenges. So it's not like as if, you want to have a challenge for your life, then don't go on Shlichus. You're going to have challenges anyway. You're going to have challenges anyway. So how beautiful is it to be together with the best partner in the world? You hear it with the Rebbe, that you're doing this for the Rebbe. Like there's nothing more rewarding, nothing more uplifting. It's such a bracha to be on Shlichus. It's such an amazing gift. That's how I see it. And I think everybody should look at it that way.
Thank you. I know we said we would end at 2:00, but I'd like to ask each one of the shluchim, if possible, to if there's a parting message that you could share with the Talmidim before we finish. We'll start with Rabbi Feller. If you could if each shliach could keep it to 60 seconds, that way we could try to finish within a relative respectful time.
The Rebbe would constantly on bringing that I was present. The Rebbe on Purim, the Rebbe would quote from the Mechir Yayin, the Ramah. He would quote a Torah, Rabbi me'ameh ha'aretz misyahadim tinofo pachal Yehudim aleim. So he would translate that the fear of the Yidden overtook the Goyim, and they were Mishadim, he says they were Megayah. The Rebbe brought out what the Shiryaim, the Rah said, Pachar Yehudim is the Eibishter. And when the Goyim saw how the Yidden related to the Eibishter, that influenced them. Rabbi me'ameh ha'aretz misyahadim tinofo pachal Yehudim, the fear of God, the one who the Yidden are mefached from, fell on them. And that's what shluchim have to know, that people look at the shliachs, his Übergegebenkeit, and the Rebbe was an incident that I had with Professor Belmo Green, and I stood down in Mincha in the middle, and he wrote about the story, and the Rebbe said, Philosophia between them, aber nicht die Philosophie hat genommen, die Mincha hat genommen. So to Shluchim, I pass this on that Yidden and Goyim, and Goyim and Yidden are impressed by the Yiras Shamayim of the Shliach.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Lou.
When I was 18 years old, I was in Ola Torah, Bacha in Ola Torah, and I was wondering, what am I going to do in my life? I was born into Shlichus. My parents are Baruch Hashem Shluchim for 55 years, Kenai and this was my life. It was always my life. But the question was, is it my personal life? Is that going to be my goal in life? I'm not going to go to all the pratim. I spent quite a little bit of time thinking about this, and every farbrengen that the Rebbe farbrenged then in Tashim Mem Gimel was all an answer to questions that I had. Eventually, till Purim Mem Gimel, and when I realized that a person goes to do something in life that would best express the talents that the Eibishter gave that person. And I figured that probably would be the best thing for me, my personal talent, that this would be the best way to express myself. But together with that, and that's obviously, that's what you do as a career and so on. But in addition to that, my whole life was the Rebbe. My whole life is the Rebbe. And so this was not just a job and a career that about my talent. It brought me to the realization that when the Torah says, or Be'erachacha, Parshas Re'eh, Be'erachacha Hashem Elekecha b'chol asher ta'aseh, Hashem will give you a bracha in everything that you do. Imagine if you had the brachas from the Rebbe as well in everything that you do. That is the main thing of Shlichus, similar to what Rabbi Kaplan said before. It is the greatest zechus and privilege that challenges like crazy, like anything else. But it is the greatest zechus, knowing that you are walking over a steel bridge that is being anchored by our Rebbe.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Lou. Rabbi Kaplan?
I think I would like to emphasize what I spoke about before, and this is what Rabbi Lou just said. Look, Kindelach, I'm not going to tell you that it's the easiest kind of life, and there are unique challenges to Shlichus that you won't find elsewhere. And maybe it is sometimes a little harder to be on Shlichus and to follow through doing what the Rebbe wants and expects of us, which is a very, very big thing. But the reward is absolutely unbelievable. To know every single day of your life that you're living the life that you live because you want to do what the Rebbe wants and you feel connected to the Rebbe. Before I was, I haven't got to mikveh for a long time, unfortunately, because of the situation, but I used to write a duch all the time. And if everything you do is important to the Rebbe because you're on Shlichus and you write to the Rebbe and you report to the Rebbe on a regular basis. I mean, we all want to be chassidim. We all want to be connected to the Rebbe. There's no more powerful way to be connected. It's not a mimer you learn or a mivtzayim you go on. It becomes who you are. And that reward is so much greater than the challenges, the schus, the privilege of being able to live the kind of life in which you know that you are here because the Rebbe wants you to be here and because you have a mission that the Rebbe has given you is the most exhilarating, the most exciting, the most joyous, and the most uplifting way to go through life. And yeah, I don't want to minimize the challenges. I'm not going to lie to any of you and tell you that it's always easy and always fantastic. Anybody who tells you that is not telling you the truth. But whatever difficulties there are, they're by far outweighed by the privilege and the incredible opportunity that of hiskashlus, a connection to the Rebbe, that Shlichus offers us unlike anything else. With regard to what Rabbi Lu said about the chushim and talents, and also what Rabbi Feller said before about the difference between kiruv and a shliach, we're not kiruv professionals, we're shluchim. So whatever it is that's needed, that's what we have to do. If it's a shir, then it's a shir. If it's counseling, it's counseling. If it's to deal with rabbanim, and then it's dealing with rabbanim or rabbanish things. And the thing is I want to say to all 7th and 8th graders, leave them at this. The more you learn, the better equipped you will be able to be on shlichus. Amaratzis doesn't sell. If you will not learn, you will be an ignoramus. Nobody becomes a learned by accident. Utilize the time you have. If you sit and learn, you will for sure be able to find a shlichus that works according to your chushim. Today there are so many forms of shlichus, so many different kinds of shlichus. There's a field of chinuch, there's a field of yeshivas, there's a field of mivtzayim, and it has different chushim. But you need to utilize your time and don't become a makusher when you're 24, 25, going on shlichus. Be a makusher now. I want to finish a little story. When I was in yeshiva in Alateda, there was a boy who was his mother was a widow, and we were all going on shlichus, and his mother didn't want him to leave. She couldn't bear the thought of her being alone. And he couldn't leave his mother. And he wrote to the Rebbe that he's very tzibrachim, that he wants to go on shlichus with his friends. But on the other hand, here he is, and his mother is a widow, and she's alone. So the Rebbe answered, this is like late, my days, Tafshan and Aleph. The Rebbe wrote, Haloi hoylech lemivtzai kodesh kol erev Shabbos kodesh. He goes on the holy mivtzayim every erev Shabbos kodesh. So the Rebbe said to him, that's the shlichus you're able to do, you take on, and you should know that at that point you're acting like a shliach, you have the privilege of shlichus. Go on mivtzayim kinderlach, do what the Rebbe wants. If you're in New York area, go to the oil as often as you could. If you're not, write to the Rebbe as often as you could. And grow in your chassidishkeit. and Shlichus will be the most natural thing that evolves for you, because that's what life's about. Hopefully, Mashiach comes long before you're ready to go on Shlichus. That's all. That's my hope and my prayer.
I mean, the truth of the matter is, when Mashiach's going to come, Shlichus is going to be needed even more.
I know. I heard that. I'm not sure what it means, but I heard that. It says Kulam Yedu Asi. It says Yilmadu Dishes Achiv. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, Rabbi Landa.
Yeah, it's everything that was shared is just so spot on, and I'm just inspired from listening to Rabbi Kaplan, Rabbi Lou, Rabbi Feller, of course. Is that when the Alter Rebbe was shining Chassidus and explaining Dira B'Tachtonim and Atzma Stein stuff in this world, he was referring to our generation, referring to the Baru Daplachu, finishing the job and making Hashem real in this world. That happens through Shlichus, that happens through Mivtzayim, that happens through making a difference. Then whether you're physically on Shlichus now, or whether you're doing your Shlichus, your tafkid now that the Rebbe expects of you, you're doing the most important thing. And Amaratzis does not sell, like Rabbi Kaplan said. Your job now is to learn Torah, and us on the field in Arei Asada, we're counting on our young Bachrim to be learning Torah full time, Terasem Nasei, and don't think about what's going to be in the future. Now focus on your learning, and what works for me all the time is having Farbrengens with local Chavedim, local Shluchim in the area. We always get together to Farbrengen. Now we're doing it on Zoom. In the past couple of years, we had Rabbi Feller join us for Farbrengen. We had Rabbi Lou join us for Farbrengen. I think Rabbi Kaplan's beard is white enough now that we'll try to convince him to join us also. But Farbrengens is what the Rebbe wanted. What the Rebbe wanted us to Farbring Tzvishen Chassidim. And just something on a personal level that I do, you need a mashpia from where you are now, and that mashpia will take you. If it's a different mashpia later on, but you need to have a mashpia. The Rebbe wasn't just speaking about in the older generation that needed mashpiyim in the mems. We're talking about now mashpiyim are needed, and you need to find a mashpia. And I'll just tell you personally, every week, talking about Rabbi Kaplan writing duch, I write a duch to the Rebbe, and I send it to the oil, and I send a copy to my mashpia, and he'll look it over. And it's an incredible thing. It makes me a mensch. It keeps me mesuder and makes sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and knowing that the Rebbe is looking it over. And the Rabbi Groner, I just heard from Rabbi Yossi Groner, who's the son of Rabbi Leibel Groner. He went on Shlichus in Tafshin Mem, and after the Rebbe's heart attack in Tafshin Lamed Ches in 1977, the doctors told the Rebbe that he needs to rest for an hour, and he would rest. And Rabbi Yossi Groner asked his father, what does the Rebbe do during that hour? And Rabbi Leibel Groner, Alav Shalom, said he looks at the duchos of Shluchim. He's looking at the duchim and seeing what they're up to, and that gives him nachas ruach. So we have to realize that our job is to bring nachas to the Rebbe, and obviously that's how we're going to bring Mashiach. And we have to have a mashpia, we have to write, we have to verbring, and ultimately now your job is to sit and learn Torah all day.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Landa. I want to take the opportunity before we finish to thank each one of the shluchim who came and shared and verbring with us. Each one of them, I could tell you personally, it was a challenge because they have their shiurim they give before, they give after. They have, believe it or not, they're involved in their shlichus, and because of the situation we are in, it takes even in double measure. And we really, really appreciate some of the things the shluchim told me that they are involved in doing. Even now, today, I am very, very grateful for the time that they gave, and I hope that each one of the Talmidim that are listening and participating will take to heart. Surely they'll take to heart and put it into action. And we may be zeiche that even tonight we'll hear Torah Chadasha from the mouth of Melech HaMashiach, where we'll go to the Gula Shlema, and the shluchim will be able to go to that. And may it be taken from Yad Mamish now. Thank you, Rabbi Feller. Thank you, Rabbi Lou. Thank you, Rabbi Kaplan. Thank you, Rabbi Landa. Thank you, all the Talmidim, for your questions. And maybe take it from Yad Mamish now.
Amen.
Amen. Shkoyach.
Kol Tov.